Anyway, yeah,
Okay,
go
so
for it.
topics for today is
Yep.
model spec from OpenAI, um, doing tasks in the real world, i.e., 2D and 3D, and why that doesn't actually need any fancy geometry,
Mm-hmm.
and status on where the platform is, and then the remaining time we can spend on the CRM.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
All good.
All right.
Let's do it.
So
How much time you got?
I have another 2 hours.
Excellent. So do I.
Okay, great. So, first things first, the construction company that wants to move dirt around
Mm-hmm.
doesn't need to be a doesn't need to be a 2D or a 3D problem. It can be solved by an LLM because if the because you could teach a blind man to reason about it. That's why you don't need spatial reasoning
Hmm.
for it.
Well, some of the language was very much spatial reasoning.
I
It
know
was.
because that's what they want, right? But all that is a translation layer to present it as 2D. The
Well, I guess that gets to the nub of the problem. It's like, what is the let's say JSON? What is the data that represents? You got a
it's
site,
yeah,
and you got a hole, and you got
yeah,
positioning, you got big deer,
yeah. So
that sort
so
of thing.
so it's not. Remember, I was talking to you about how to play games using an LLM, using a text-based state board, and
Yeah.
some right. It's no different to that. And so you sort of lay out what the thing is in words. You could even name a grid, and then you start asking questions about it. And it's not that the LLM has to know about the problem. It kind of just has to be able to twiddle the levers so that you'd make a rudimentary calculator that knew how to do things like 5 buckets times x equals this volume, and so you sort of just get the LLM to
Well,
configure the
yeah,
calculator.
yeah, that'd be easy enough. No, my main kind of contraindication to that is how do you capture the information about a particular hole? I don't even know. We're talking.
Well, you
You want
you
to build a
draw it.
hole.
It's the same as in the CRM how we have to ring fence an area for service. It's just a polygon on a map.
As soon as you get polygons on a map, you're talking about 3D
No,
or
you're
two
really
D.
not. No, you're not. You're
Um,
not because the tool that generates them and presents them to the human, yeah, that's 2D, but it immediately becomes you transform it into language where you're like the hole is X meters by X meters, it's Z meters deep. The volume calculation is XYZ. The type of soil is blah 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 blah. It can be turned into a text problem.
I'm going to pull up not on the screen. I'm going to pull up
And
the
the overriding
constraints.
example that I won't be beaten off of is that a blind man who's never seen would know
Mm-hmm.
about how to. You could teach him how to reason about this problem, which means that you'd have to describe it to him in natural language, and provided he had a perfect memory and reasonable intelligence, he would be able to tell you what was the best answer. Do you agree? Do you agree with that model?
I think the onus is moved on clarity of the description, but hypothetically, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I agree.
right, right. And if
Yeah,
the description is not clear, we should be able to ask leading questions, clarifying questions to make it clear. And
that's a really interesting point. So, LLMs are notoriously bad for things like route finding. And I sent over that Revix paper,
yeah,
um, which is the as far as it's got at the moment, which is pretty good, but
yeah.
still, without actually training a model,
No, yeah,
it's still
but
pretty
the
shit.
thing is, like, I think we gotta think about, what does the LLM landscape look like a year from now? It's probably a lot better. They still, they might have some spatial reasoning that might give the answers better, but I'm, I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't. another 5 years before there's a good spatial model that turns up. Like, who cares as well as the other answer? Like, if we've got LLMs and it works good enough, if it works better than a human, then that's winning. So it doesn't need to be, oh, that's not correct. That's not doing spatial reasoning. So what? It's giving you a better answer than a human, cheaper, faster.
I'm thinking about this. So this is one of the metrics. There is a kind of standard test that is run with models, and from memory, it's something like you've got a hole this big. Well, I'll just make it up, but it's along this line. You're trying to dig a hole that's 1 meter by 1 meter, 9 meters deep.
Yeah.
And one guy with a shovel can dig down 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter in 1 hour.
Yeah.
What happens if we put 9 guys on that? And the thing that always fucks up is realizing you can't get 9 guys into a 1 meter by 1 meter.
Yeah, but that's you get around that by having a good physics model, and the physics model is not hard to build. It's and it can easily throw an error when the LLM's like, I'll have 90 guys digging the 1 meter hole and it will be done in 30 seconds. And then the physics model is just like,
you're saying natural language constraints as opposed to
no. I'm saying that the LLM is given a set of crude levers like number of guys, size of hole, location, and it's just doing function calls and filling in the parameters for the field. And the physics model is just like error. Too many people in one, too many, volume constraint. Multiple people in the same physical location, dumbass.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying about the constraints. So what you're saying, if I reflect that back, on the example that I gave, there'll be a constraint that one guy can dig 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter in 1 hour.
Yeah.
And only one person can be deployed in a 1 meter by 1 meter space.
That's right. Yeah.
And therefore, it's nonsense if you try and add 10 guys.
But the classic thing that applies to all problems in the world is the more you break it down and reason through it step by step, the better the accuracy of the final answer. So if you get the LLM to work out a moment by moment, person by person schedule, and you have like layers of rules, like at any given time, no person on the worksite can be idle for more than 5 minutes. And then it's like minimize the amount of walking time an individual does. And you give it those rules and give it loops to go round and round and round and be like, was this better or worse? Better, worse, better, worse. And all it has to do, I mean, given a monkey that only, and a machine that only recorded the best outcome of the calculator, even a monkey would optimize that problem.
Right. Okay. So the difference you're proposing there is LLMs do shit on spatial reasoning on zero shot. Just like
and it's rude to ask them to. Like, it's rude.
But if you give it like a list of constraints up the yin yang, some of which might be written specifically for this task,
and you give it function calls that throw back errors when constraints have been violated that are informative, right? Which is different to giving them the constraints up front. It's just saying that there's a form of hard error.
Red flag is like, this is now not coherent.
Right. It's like
that's what I've been doing over the last day or so with the CRM.
And honestly, who gives a flying toss how many times it has to go around, because it can run, 1,000 different angles in parallel. The point is that if I built a suitable software model of the problem and it became an optimization problem of, which lever goes where and for how much, okay, writing the physics model or the rule model for that is a fraction of the work that is required to write the optimizing software for that. But if you use the LLM to drive the optimizer, particularly if it's a problem that actually doesn't have a classical solution, like the traveling salesman problem, and that so long as a reasonably intelligent person tried a number of times,
you're talking right.
fuzzing.
Okay, so
It's fuzzing.
it's just fuzzy logic. As
Yeah, but it doesn't matter that it's not perfect. It just matters that it's better than a human and it can justify its output. And
but
so
also it's useful. Well, possibly useful if you have someone on site that says, "Okay, I've got this hole to dig. I've got one digger."
yeah, well, that's the thing though. Like the guys using it want to actually they want to move the levers in the model, and what they really want is the LLM to handle the consequences. So the guys have a dashboard that says what they care about, like money, time, safety, number of people on site, weather-dependent factors. They want to twiddle with the board and have the LLM score it. It's only later that they actually want the LLM to have a go at it. I say, why not let the LLM have a go in the background anyway? Who cares? But it's so long as you can calculate the impact of what you're doing, and that can be
advice. Saying if you do this, it's probably going to have this output.
Right. Right. And then and then it doesn't. It doesn't really. The physics model doesn't have to be pure software. The physics model can include some drones in there as well that capture parts of the model for us, and it's just about presenting a bunch of levers and knobs to a human that can also be driven by a multi-threaded LLM that just sort of has at it, and we just sort of improve it over time once we have interaction with the humans and the AIs.
Okay.
That's why I think this is a good problem, because it's not.
It's a brilliant problem.
It seems like you're doing spatial reasoning, but you're not.
Yeah. Well, actually, they listed excavation, transportation, stockpiling, and
did they now?
Yes. No, that's all right. There's no
I know
secret about that.
Yeah.
Right. So transportation could be done because you could even represent that as a graph database, or just a graph notification in text,
right?
And it would handle that very well. In fact, I've been looking at that for the CRM. The stockpiling again is around locations, and it's like, is there enough space? That's easy. And simulating those. The really hard one is when you've got a physical environment which changes every time. How do you capture the initial state in order to give a reasonable feedback on what's
so at the moment that information is captured in spreadsheets.
Really? Well, that's shit.
Is it though? I mean, these guys build
cities. No, it's not captured in spreadsheets. The information is captured in the mind of the guy working the digger.
But there's a guy in the office that's never set foot on site that's doing the estimating and the planning, and he's working off a spreadsheet. So my point is that I think that this problem has a natural tendency to want to overcalculate it. What you're talking about, I don't think that's a hard part.
Okay, all right. I'd love a crack at this.
Yeah, I know.
Other things to do, but
I know. But this is a fun one. This is a fun one, and it's a money making one.
It is beautiful.
Yeah. Now the main thing that I am interested about with these guys is that for some reason, somehow, their central motto is I'm going to paraphrase here.
Yeah.
A tribute to all who contribute.
That sounds like a dream catcher.
Well, yeah, because I paraphrased it to sound that way. But their actual motto is not very far off. And what I want to really pitch to these guys is that the notion of being rewarding everyone who contributed is not new. It's pretty ancient, but it's only ever been able to be done manually. And if you're struggling to gather performance data about your staff right now anyway, the chances that you can make a fair attribution calculation are nearly zero, right? And so the real value I see in this company is being able to sell them or not sell them, sorry, help them or be asked to provision for them an attribution calculator that strives to be as fair as possible to everyone who contributed, with the key addition that the people in charge can place extra incentives that align with their incentives. So
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So the
So
performance management and the task specification and the optimizing are all presented as the same thing now. They're not independent systems.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take this down to the a very simple site where they just had to dig one hole. And from what you're saying, if we take that as read, then we can suggest strategies which will be potentially better or potentially worse than what's actually done.
Right.
And then we can measure whether someone's actually done something sensible.
Well, yeah, and then we can say, well, looking at this past data, the project was worth X. We think that, based on these rules, that this person deserves a bonus of X, this person deserves a bonus of Y, this person's contribution was negative, this person
right. Yeah.
X,
And
Y,
that,
Z,
that just clumps up to the crystal discussion.
impact crystals. Yeah. So if we can get their performance bonus and their employee performance review system interleaved with their scheduling and optimization, so that the AI is able to give out bonuses ahead of time for things that it wants, that it knows are more important, and if it's also able to retroactively calculate bonuses based on measured contribution, then you first of all you make people want to use the system, because if you didn't put your data in the system, then you're not going to get the bonus. And second of all, that's the dream catcher in operation.
It's a really interesting thing, and it's the same level of tractability as the crystal question, which we're still working out. But if we solve the crystal question, then we solve it for incentivizing. Well, it's not just these guys actually, because the whole point of the
It's
crystal
kind of everyone, yeah. And then to take in some of our previous thinking, we haven't even begun to look at charities. That dropped off the radar, but actually charity is a pretty major. Yeah, it's kind of major. The other aspect.
It's quite funny. You trailed off and say, "Yeah, charities are pretty major."
Yeah. The other aspect I forgot to mention was one day we'll have a system and it will all do things for us all day, every day. If you make me log in, I'm going to kill myself. Opaque data text. Okay, let's not. Hey, whoopsie daisy. Whoa. Well,
trust-based fact validation. That is very interesting. Anyway, sorry. That's right.
That's
very interesting. Topic.
Yeah, I know. I think that, the Dreamcatcher can be used to know what is true based on people staking funds against an assertion, which they earn a royalty for as it gets consumed, but they pay out to everyone who consumed it if they're proven wrong.
And then you have a bunch of fact checkers,
fact snipers. Yeah, fact snipers go around trying to,
that's
it's fun, right? Hey?
yeah, that's a very fun one, but that's not what we're talking about. That's a really good one for the notebook.
Right.
Where are your stocks? That's a definite stock. Where are you recording your stocks at the moment?
In GitHub in this system here, so that just gets
Right, cool. So we can ingest that at the right moment.
Yeah, it's all. I've been ready to be ingested for years. I've been waiting.
Because that's a really sweet one, right? You could go back to the journals we were talking to about 18 months ago, for provenance, fact checking, and incentivization around that. That would be something I think we could talk to them about for sure. Because who doesn't want to be the source of truth?
Right, everyone. Shit, man. Here we go. Okay, so we had an interesting. I mean, I mentioned I've been pushing the Satoshi Island guys about, what dimensions matter,
and this is in
so what I did
context of attribution, right?
No, this is the context of impact crystals and generating them.
Impact. Okay, right.
Yeah. And so what I did, I'm sorry I've jumped into this. I got a lot to get off my
no, go for it.
Chest, so to speak.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm with you. Yeah.
All right. So what I did, because you were mentioning impact of, impact crystals, and we could lay out in 3D on the job site all these impact crystals, and basically as a worker, your job is to go around and collect the impact crystals that are not made, so that you can, you're like, oh, there's a good one, there's another good one, blah blah blah. Oh no, I lost you. Let me know when you're back. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Da 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 da. Hey,
I'm back.
You're back.
Sorry about
that. I know you are.
I was halfway through saying I dropped out for 10 seconds, but I dropped out for 40 seconds.
That'll teach you. So what I did was I took that. They've done some really hard work on putting together a pitch deck for a portion of the resort that they want to get some funding for. And so the exercise, which I think you'll appreciate, is that I fed it into ChatGPT and said this, that I would give me the, what was my prompt? My prompt was here.
Okay.
Where I dumped the pitch deck in and asked for all of the dimensions that the pitch deck talks about beyond just money.
Cool. As an aside, I see this is just straight chat. You should start using HAL v2. I'm getting some really excellent results because of that intent thing. So if you use platform and HAL v2 and give feedback about where it goes wrong.
Oh, yeah. Hey, now we're cooking. That is the first time that you have asked me to use some of your software.
Yeah.
Now we're cooking.
It's pretty good. It's far from perfect, but it's a lot better than zero shot straight onto, the consumer chat.
Far from pretty, but pretty from afar. I will take it. Yeah. Okay. So these were the dimensions that were referenced in that slide deck. And my point is that we can extract the dimensions from people's behavior and what they do and what they say they care about. Because when you're reading a company's emails, like they will talk about things that aren't strictly captured in a dimensional sense, but they are really trying to get people to pick up on those things.
Give me an example.
Well, when a company is talking about integrity or honesty or things like that, you can mine or parse their emails and say how much that comes up and how strongly the management pushes it, promotes it, lives it. Some companies
or
don't even
where
mention
there's an email stream that's duplicitous, where it's
it. Right,
obvious that someone said something and then gone back.
right,
All
right,
right.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
And pitch decks is a great one because everyone's trying to talk about more than just money, and you're like, okay, what is the more than money? And so in my head now, I think I got a pretty clear set of rules around what impact crystals are, how they look, and all that. And the best imagery I can cook up actually uses some horrible examples to clarify the properties. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, if I was to generate an impact crystal of murder or
Mm-hmm.
of theft, um,
Mm-hmm.
then I could make an impact crystal of genocide, and you can
Mm-hmm.
show these like how these shapes of popular, understood, extreme examples can be presented in this graphical form, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
here's the impact crystal interface. You can see it in 3D and you can chat with it.
Hmm.
And when you chat, you can change it. You can say, I don't care about the
Well, yeah, you
biodiversity
filter it
dimension,
exactly.
and it
Yeah.
alters the shape of the crystal.
Yeah.
You can then overlay different scales and dimensions with other interesting types of things. Now, this is not a good idea, but I'll use it as an example.
Mm-hmm.
A crystal is one thing. Now, I would color mine I would point them so that things that I thought were good pointed up and things that I thought were bad pointed down. And
Mm-hmm.
so murder would probably be a very dark colored crystal with a lot of big, thick lines going down,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, right?
Yeah,
But
you'd have to calibrate so that you had,
yeah,
because pointing out is infinite and pointing in is finite. So.
right. So the you can take those dimensions and those scales and you can map them to images. And so, for example, if you were to generate impact crystals for a whole bunch of businesses that you were looking at acquiring, you could
Mm-hmm.
map it to, like, let's say, for example, you could map it to images of women, so that, like, you know,
Oh, really? Are you gonna go there?
I'm just saying, listen, just hear me out.
Okay,
So
I'll
that
hear you out.
you could tune it to present in ways that were good for you to scan. So if you got all these things and you knew what things were sort of caught your eye and didn't, you could use images to represent impact crystals as a means of being able to filter a large number of things very rapidly. Like, and you could do things like, if some particular person was exposing themselves sort of way too much to the camera, that business is desperate and that's sort of what you should stay away from that because they're too eager
Mm-hmm.
to be sold. Or there may be a business that doesn't look so good is over here,
Mm-hmm.
one that's too young, one that's too old, one that hasn't
Mm-hmm.
grown in a while. Like, my point is that impact crystals is just one that, when I say it out loud, that was a terrible example. But the point is, it's a graphical representation of what's otherwise been just abstract thought.
Well, there's an interesting an example of this. Let's see if we can get it up here. While I'm talking, it's an image of the size of the body based on a
Nerves?
number of nerves.
Yeah, I've seen that image. It's got
Yeah, so
massive lips and then huge hands and
right.
feet. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I'll be very careful what I do here because I've got a whole bunch of stuff that's I've not got permission to show.
Why don't you just close it?
That one, right? So, so this sort of thing. Now, the
Yeah.
really interesting thing about so if that's an impact crystal, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a crystal, but let's say the interesting thing is this has been generated with a number of nerve endings.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Now, the if you're how are you going to use this? You could just like present that. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. there's two things that another party I think would probably want to do. The first one is rerun, knowing what you're interested in. So it's like I'm interested
Yep.
in nerve endings. And the second thing is I'd like to rerun, considering you know some of the prompt. I'm more interested in the amount of skin,
Right.
and that would change it. So
Right.
it's those two things. It's
Or the
'cause
ratio.
this
Yeah.
is
So
a way
you
of
should
coming
be able
to
to chat with the viewer, and it will generate or regenerate the views any which way you like, as well as perform detailed searches for crystals of interest to you
yeah.
based on your
Yeah,
search
and
criteria, right?
ideally, you
Yeah.
should be able to recreate. If someone sends you, this guy, you can recreate that and go, "Oh, I see what you're interested in. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to now add in,
Yeah. Now,
skin
you can
manually."
also you should be able to make Ford's impact crystals, which means that you can talk about the impact crystal you wish for and model it, and then put money against making it happen or other conditions that can cause it to be. And so that's really what escrow is, where you're like, I want this impact. And
Well, that's interesting actually. So, basically, we'd be putting the idea you put money against stocks, but putting it against impacts is
well, the
a
impact
different
of
thing.
the impact of the stuck is really what you're ultimately putting your money against, right? You don't much
Yeah.
care. You want the outcome of the stuck being solved. You don't really want the stuck. The stuck actually isn't the thing. It's the outcome.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. But okay, so this is a half-arsed idea because you just like said something that was very interesting. So, say we got three stocks. You could look at the impact crystals of each one of those, and then put money against one impact. So, say if each of those three had four impacts of varying levels, and you say, "I'm putting money against just this one impact," which would fund each of those three in different proportions based on their crystals.
Mm. So, and then you start getting route optimization, like what we've been talking about, where the LLMs can very quickly figure out a portfolio of the best path through the jungle for you, where you're like, this impact has this much risk, but if it pays out, it will fund this other thing, which will ultimately get you to the thing that you really want, which is over here.
Yeah. No. Can I
Yep.
just
Go.
rewind 30 seconds? Because I don't think I'm just forming this idea. Okay, so imagine we've got 1,000 stocks. Now, up to this point, we're saying you can escrow against a stock.
Yeah.
Now, with the crystals, what we could say is I'm going to escrow around CO2 emission reduction,
Right.
which would give uh, amount of funding for every stock that uh, had that
Had
vector in its
that
crystal.
dimension in it. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
right. So you can actually, that is interesting because it allows you to algorithmically partially fund. So you're funding by algorithm or by
Yeah.
condition, not by
Yeah.
thing. So if you're like,
Exactly.
oh,
Yeah.
I'll pay for CO2 reduction, then right, that's cool. That's like
That is
funding.
cool, isn't it? Yeah. And
So
you can
right,
choose whatever you want. I'm funding
right,
anything
right,
that
right.
benefits Ukraine. Boom.
Right. So
Give me
the
a whole
impact
bunch of stuff.
crystals, once they become realized, you pay out if the impact matches the
Oh, that's
algorithm.
ah no,
Right.
that is actually
That's deep.
that's really interesting
That's really
because
deep.
you could, depending on your dimension of the crystal, of which there are any number,
Yep.
in which we can refer and analyze a stock for its potential impact, you could put a bit of crowdfunding into 1,000 projects,
Yeah.
knowing that what you want is going to be, promoted
Yeah.
as part of that.
Yeah. And then you'll see that
Yeah, yeah.
your escrow there will change the shape of forward impacts. So impacts that haven't happened yet. And
Uh-huh.
people would sculpt the impacts that they're trying to hit, and your promise to fund a certain dimension would cause the calculation, if you wanted to capture that escrow too, you would have to alter the shape of the future crystal that you're modeling to incorporate the dimension that you're trying to capture, which would
Yes.
change the shape of like all crystals within the blast zone, within the funding zone, which is a
That's really
really
interesting.
really smart way to fund things, right?
And it would have a feedback loop as well, because if you've got a stock that you want to do, then you can through natural language state it in any way. If you make it clear that, say, if you've gone through, because you can look at this, let's call it the stock space,
God damn, that is good.
Yeah, see what I'm saying?
That is so
then
good.
The feedback loop is you can incorporate what people care
Oh,
about.
that's intelligent
based on
money.
funding.
It's intelligent money.
And we've got all the dimensions. We just need to offer that up
It's like a way better way. Like a lot of these enterprise arms of the government are trying to do things like that. They're like, we'll pay you X on the dollar if you only employ people from Scotland, or if you produce COT,
I deal with funds like that all the time.
Yeah,
It's like
you
know, black women entrepreneurs.
I know, right?
In the 20s.
So this is like a way to get that dimensionality, just to give it a shape, give it a geometry, give it something you can hold, not just an abstract thought. And it provides a common canvas by which you can overlay all these various seemingly unrelated dimensions and see them as one in combination or not. That's what's cool, right? Seeing multiple dimensions in one place. That's what's cool.
Yeah. And that
I
is
like that a lot.
Really fucking good.
Smart money.
Yeah.
AI money.
Cool. That's if we get nothing else out of this call, that's worth it. That's really good.
Glad you're so dismissive of all the other contributions so far.
You know what I'm saying?
There's some fucking fairly negative impact right there.
Well, how would you be able to do that up to now? What you'd have to do is if you were, well, let's say, I'm only going to invest in black women in Africa in their 20s. You'd have to find a fund. That fund
it's clumsy,
rules.
It's really clumsy.
You have to go off and every time they look at an organization, they're saying, "Are you black women in 20s in Africa?"
Right. And so these crystals actually give you this way to look at organizations that are trying to do more than just money and compare them on the same table. Like, you can make a crystal and I could lay them out on this table for 5 different seemingly unrelated companies, but we could see the relationship from looking at the crystals together.
Right. And the interesting thing about crystals is we're not stating that there's only 8 dimensions that you could possibly ever.
No, it's that you can
a new one.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. You can make them up on the fly, what the new dimensions are. Now, there's some other basic rules of the game for crystals, in that you can merge them seemingly without limit. Like, you can take that 5 companies, and you can
effectively just another NL search on
and you just go smush, and you're like, this is the crystal representing all 5 of them.
Yeah.
You can also split them out as well, and you could split out within a company, which, if you took the company crystal and split it out amongst all the employees, you'd get these different shaped crystals too.
Well, it's fractal, isn't it? So we're choosing stocks or a company, but we could choose any other level. Sorry, that's a call. Just gonna silence that. You could choose any. It's fractal. You could go all the way down as far as you want, or all the way up as far as you want.
No, there's something magic. There's something magic about making it a geometry and making it a common shared canvas as well, because I've never seen these things presented in this way, but it somehow makes it feel like I can wrap my head around it better, because I keep looking at that photo on the wall and I keep imagining that thing over there is an impact crystal. And I imagine that I can understand a complex beast just by if I'm familiar with crystals and I've tweaked and tuned my viewer to my liking, right? Like,
Yeah. There's only a handful, a very small number of rules we need to generate
I
these things.
know it's not very big,
It's like
dude. It's
a common data set that
right,
the crystals are generated on.
right. Like it's,
Um,
like
common dimensions that are well understood, but also being able to add in dimensions and having
yeah,
natural language
the fact that it's dynamic
sets.
and chat based means that if you don't like one person's view of a crystal, change it.
Right, right. And the only other thing would be and this is a nuance, but how to drill down. So, say if you've got a crystal here, it's got a massive spike, and one of them is really poor because of your choice of vectors.
Mm.
It's like, well, why is that one poor? So you should be able to, again, fractal wise, zoom in on that and then pull
Mm.
that out as a separate
Yeah,
crystal and go,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah,
it's because of this one.
yeah. Be able to chat about it, and
Yeah.
then attach also that prediction marketplace so that you can have a sort of an averaging effect between multiple views of what the crystal actually is. That's
Yep.
important.
Yep.
And then yeah, if you can make future crystals where you can just sort of concoct one based on a
Well,
description.
future crystals would just be choosing the methodology or the model that you're using.
Right. But you can
Because
also like make a crystal of something today, grab a hold of it,
yeah,
yank it, and be like, this bit goes big, right? And then
yeah.
you're like, that's the crystal I want, and this is what I'm prepared to give to.
Oh, so it could suggest
Yeah,
saying, "Oh, I didn't understand that was that important to you, this one
yeah,
dimension." In that case, here's what you should do in order to generate that crystal. Here's
right,
what you should do:
right, right,
fund
right,
this,
right.
do that, so on.
Yeah. So being able to
Ah,
like manipulate the models and be like, that's what I really want, and then that's crazy,
so
man. That's crazy.
that is crazy. So
Being able to deal with that shit.
you could take all the stocks. Let's just imagine like a million stocks are out there, and
Yeah.
then you could say, right, I'm interested in democracy and human rights and gender rights and all that kind of good stuff.
Hmm.
You get a crystal and saying, well, actually, of all that, I want to spend most of my effort on democracy to pull that out, and then that translates because underneath the crystal is the information about what to do, but also the modeling. It's like what would need to change,
Hmm.
and it could also suggest new stocks.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
if you
yeah.
really want to do this, you need
And so
to.
when you're planning your course of
Hmm.
action, your HAL is looking at all these forward crystals that have been generated and escrowed against, and it's like, well, you could choose this path or that path, but look, there's some extra incentives that have been laid out over here. If you do it like this, you'll get this extra funding here, blah 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 blah. So
Hmm.
like that's I'm fascinated at why that's such a remarkably clear way to see venture is through these crystals. I'd
It's
never have thought of it before.
I think because this is what people naturally do in terms of everyone's got their own judgment about what they care about, but they're having
Yeah,
to do it in their brain. They
I
don't.
know.
There's
It's
no
never been
automation.
unified. And it's
Yeah.
never been unified. And it's certainly never been presented as a vector to me. Like, that was a fucking new thing.
Yeah.
Like, so I wonder if we took the original Zenova plans of, like, talent, capital, technology, and just thought of those as just dimensions in a crystal. And
Oh,
then,
sure. Yeah. I mean,
like, that's just,
that falls very neatly in.
yeah.
So the other thing is who you are. So if I was to turn up at Zenova as someone who I don't know is an electrical engineer, and what I care about is carbon reduction, then boom, there you go.
Mm,
You got the search. Now you say, well, I care more, but I've only got this wee tiny bit of a spike. I want to pull that out. It's like, well, okay, in order to do that, here are the areas that you would propose as new stocks. And the interesting thing about doing it horizontally is it could look at technology one place and then remove it move it to another place, saying, well, if you really care about, carbon reduction, then talk to these guys, because they're doing something that you've got skills with, which could also, interestingly, be part of your own crystal.
Yeah, it can help you find teammates based on dimensionality that you care about, which is not always apparent. Actually, it's quite hard to
It's random. It's
register.
random at the moment. Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
That's
Okay.
fun.
That is
all right.
Nice.
Impact crystals. It sounds like it's just getting better and better down that avenue.
Well, there's a lot of thinking to be done on it, but certainly it's worth putting thought into, isn't it, in order to actually make it real. But yeah. This looked quite vanilla answer. What were you intending that answer to be?
A wise man once told me that every algebraic equation has a corresponding geometric shape.
In dimensional space, yeah.
And so what we're doing with the impact crystals is taking, first of all, things that are a bit fuzzy anyway, making them algebraic by giving them an amount and a way to yeah, and then finally giving it a geometry. And that's I'm failing to express why I see that as so magic, but there is something glorious.
No, I agree. I mean, to take it right back to basics, why do people love dashboards? Is or traffic lights. That's a great one, right? You can take in a lot more information with a geometric shape than you can do.
You're right, and the fact that it's a thing, like there's a thing, and I'm holding it, and it represents everything I care about. It's easier for me to intellectually bond with it because I feel like having it all in the same place rather than like, reading about the carbon emissions of a company versus this versus that. It's like a 3D dashboard thing,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then you can also time scrub it, so you can see it over time and you can watch it change. You can then run future projections on where it's likely to go, the shape of it. You can ask it to be rebuilt with some new information, and you can watch it grow as the LLM does these huge amounts of calculations to rebuild it. It gets really fun. But yeah. Okay. Anyway, I think I've thrashed that.
Yeah, no, it's
rocket enough, but
I think
it's the thing to make, right? Like this is the embodiment. This is the embodiment of the Dreamcatcher. Is these crystals?
Yeah.
Okay. So I got another totally separate subject that I'd like to idea for something that I'd like to present to you. Was there anything that you wanted to do first? I've been kind of hogging them.
No, crack on.
Okie dokie. Remember when we went to, we were inside that Brink Traveler app, and we were going to these cool places and all that, and I was like, it'd be really cool to be able to turn up to the beach at Normandy and watch a real reconstruction of the actual landing taking place.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a hell of a subject change, but yeah, okay.
All right. And there isn't one. There is not a timeline accurate, historically accurate 3D model of...
Mostly because of the paucity of data.
But hear me out on this one.
Okay.
I think there's an opportunity for a game. And that game is you can use chat to pull in arbitrary information that you use as proof to say why part of a scene is a certain way. And so you can do historical reconstructions in collaboration with other people where you can build up a little bit by little bit. Each time the scene is consumed by someone, you get a royalty. At the very least, you get some kudos. As a student doing a history study, I could go in there and I could change the model to suggest some alternate things might have happened, and then see the impact of that as calculated out by an LLM process. And I should be able to observe multiple plausible realities. Now, this same reconstruction system can be used for a crime scene. It can be used for battles.
All right. No, I don't have it yet, but right. Let's take, from what I understand, the JFK assassination. How would that work?
So,
Data.
yep, you'd probably, there'd be a bunch of photographs from that day. You should go and get every single one of them, and then it'd be up to machines and people to place those photos where they are in space and in time, so that you can make sure that the reconstruction fits with the pieces of the puzzle that you're moving around and placing here and there. You'd be able to figure out the make and model of the car. You'd be able to give it a course down the road. You'd be able to, using a chat.
That's quite. If we're talking about images, did I send you over the Geo AI guys, GeoSpy? Did I send you over?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, this is awesome. And it's pertinent. This isn't a rabbit hole. So I'll go to these guys. Now what I need is a random photo. I used a photo.
Oh yes, you did show me. I'm sorry, you showed me.
Yeah.
You showed me. Yeah.
Right.
So basically, what it is a combination of AIs being able to ingest data automatically, so it's not just fucking
place it and put it into a 3D
But
world,
there's still a big discussion to be had, because it's always going to be vague or missing, or there's alternate realities that could be had. Plus, you actually want the ability to say, now what if this and this happened, or why did this battalion land at this point in Normandy, not this one? What if they did it this way? Would the outcome have been better? So it's sort of like the earth moving guys wanting to be able to chat with the site plan. You should be able to learn from history and go into any major battle and know how it could have been done better and why, and apply that to future battles and future things that haven't happened yet. And that's a better teaching tool than sitting in a fucking boring classroom writing an essay, man.
That is cool. Very cool. How would you do that? You can constrain it to a site, take the construction guys, and as a training tool, let's put up a few cameras, and then do the what ifs.
Right.
A whole bunch of
and then it's like when can I have a go at planning, boss? It's like, well, here's the game. Okay, if you score above 5,000 points, you can plan the next job. Right.
There's a guy I used to work with, did an interesting game, which this is why I mentioned JFK. He wrote a game. Well, he didn't write it. His team wrote it to recreate whether or not it was plausible that you could assassinate the president going at that particular angle, your elevation.
Right. And so you should be able to, this tool would be able to recreate any scene, and you could present it as plausible, not plausible, and give your evidence. And you could make a documentary out of that sort of thing. Like, that's interesting stuff. And then viewers can come in and have a play around for themselves, and they'll leave with a much stronger feeling of intimate understanding of how that particular moment in history went down.
Yeah. Actually, this is right up his street. I'll not mention his name or his company, but
I think that's a fabulous teaching tool, because I think that we need to find new ways to teach kids, because what is it if writing essays is now trivialized? Like, what is teaching now, and how can you make it more mind expanding? And this is one such way.
Yeah. Let me find out what he's currently doing. Yeah, writing essays is just
It's
industrialized.
torture. It's torture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
One second. No, rabbit hole. I'll
Yeah.
come back
All right.
up. Oh, there. No, yeah, he's still trading. Uh, this is one of we're that's a rabbit hole for us, but it might be worth a fire and forget over to this guy
Well, I
because he
think
literally tries to do it in 5 minutes.
once we can demonstrate that concept of set a scene, like digging holes, moving earth, here's some earth moving things, and then LLMs that can appraise various scenarios within it, then yeah, it seems easy to do what your mate's doing.
Well, he did it by hand,
Right.
um,
Which
and
is pain. Yeah.
it costs a lot.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
yeah, that's right. Okay, right, okay.
So what other topics were there? There's a platform update and there's a
We'll go through with the CRM.
what's that, sorry?
We'll go through because you've been talking for the last two.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the CRM.
Okay.
Now I'm kind of I did an interim commit, but there's a few interesting things which I'll just talk to on up the screen just in case. So what I've done is remember last time we talked, had the intent and the JSON. Quite straightforward to make those into a single JSON. So then I pulled that into in order to create test data. The interesting thing about that is they pointed out incoherence in the JSON, which is fuck. Oh, I'm back. I'm
Yeah.
back.
Hey.
Yeah, cool.
Incoherence in the JSON.
Yeah, that step showed some incoherence, which is the text I sent you when Hal was getting really pissy, saying that's not the way to do it, and so on. And so taking the, I'm just thinking about the process that not just for CRM but for anything like this. It seems like
What's wrong?
am I back? I'm dropping in and out. It's really
When did you restart your headset last?
last time we talked.
Okay. And you've got enough free space.
Yeah, I've ditched everything. Anyway,
Man.
I'm back now. But the observation is number one with the JSON worked well. It seems to, or Hal seems to still be picking up on entries in the JSON as session prompts or system prompts, which is good.
Right.
And so it's staying on matter.
All right. So you like that? You like that format? Do you?
Seem to at this point it seems to be working quite well.
Okay.
So you put in a whole bunch of constraints inside of the JSON that you're talking about in terms of the data spec.
Yeah.
And what I've been doing, it's the latest commit that's up there now. I've been using HAL v02 in order to generate test data, and that threw up some incoherence when I was asking it to. Well, the example was I'd split out roots and plan being temporal based and roots being location based, and it couldn't actually fulfill my prompt, which was create test data using the customer and the location. Just give me, I don't care what it is. And it came to a block, which is really interesting. It's the first time that HAL has come up with a proper stuck, and it's come back to me saying, yeah, can't do this. It also proposed how to fix it, which I was quite impressed by. So I've got one more to do now. An interesting thing around it is this iteration of actually using the data specs in order to generate test data, throwing up issues, has thrown up a few interesting things in terms of the constraints.
Right.
and the constraints, the priority of that constraints is the thing I'm going to be looking at next, just after this call. And after that, I want to go to what I was saying yesterday about my gut says actually we leave the data specs behind. That's a a HAL issue, but we give a 3.5 bot that is written just to read those this actual data and see how well it goes. I think that will have the same kind of virtuous cycle where it's going, don't know, or it will give something out really obviously erroneous.
And so you get the
Now,
superior bot to try and program the inferior bot and loop over and over until it gets it so that the inferior bot can get it, which means that it's good to go.
right. So that's the loop that I think that's probably going to be quite productive.
Okay.
Taking the session, given all the test data, and the session, and the data specs, put that back to the superior bot, which can consider more, and saying where did this inferior bot go wrong. Now, the reason I'm quite
so you're in the programming mode now, as opposed to the using mode.
This is I've been stupulous about this. I haven't changed a single line of JSON. I haven't gone in and wiggled anything and so on. So all of this has been through NL. But it's this bootstrapping thing. It's really muddy, and then after
it needs to land partially formed at least.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
I suspect there's probably going to be a thing, a point where I'm going to have to print out or get all the data specs, and then I did go down a bit of a rabbit hole, putting in the specs as it is, and then try to get how to normalize it. But he was talking shit.
Okay.
I was originally went and saying, can you put whether this is normal form? Like, yes, here's normal form. Whenever he doesn't know, he talks about the Wikipedia version of whatever you've asked for.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm guessing.
Okay.
That's
all right. So we're still sort of dealing with. You like the data spec format. There are some issues with it.
Yep.
I have a sense that those can be solved by a combination of nesting plus some custom tools.
Yes. Yep.
Where you're sort of giving a very narrow instruction to a single prompt drone to do something and come back, as opposed to, like, I feel like your weakness at the moment is you're somewhat forced to do multiple operations, which should be independent threads. You're being forced to try and do them in one prompt.
Here's the thing. Yeah, exactly. On that, I'll share my screen and I will not. Bugger. No, I'm back. Share my screen and not swipe. It's on that point. So already in this latest, so this is just really session 2.
Oh, you restarted your VS Code. Good stuff.
Did you know that?
I know a lot of things, my friend.
Where's that? I don't see that data.
Don't worry, it's not there now. That's what was bugging me. I was like, when is this guy going to update his fucking thing? Like, how can you handle that notification sitting there?
So what I'm thinking at the moment is, actually, remember my assertion about 3 weeks ago that a bot should be a single function, because that way you can closely couple.
It should be, yeah. It's a highly advanced thing to have a multifunction bot.
Yeah, well, also highly advanced with relatively poor output.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's like, do you know a little bit everything or a lot about one thing?
You want a lot about one thing and a switcher, a router.
Exactly. So what I'm thinking at the moment, and this is going to put me into cut and paste hell, but just for the time being, each one of these JSONs really should have a bot that is talked to and saying, right, okay, I understand this JSON very well. Let me click onto one. So I understand about, this is fake data. I understand about customer agents, and we've just fired James. Therefore, I'm going to update James, and using a lower intelligence bot to do that is actually more predictable than a higher intelligence
the
bot.
lower intelligent ones are very predictable. That's what's good.
Yeah. So one bot for each of these JSONs seems about right. But then it's like, well, how do you keep it coherent? So I think as well as one bot, it's going to be really simple and probably the same bot. Be something along the lines of, here's the schema, your job, you're allowed to do this, you're not ever allowed to do that, sort of thing. But there's, I think the next part will be one up, which is really what I've been doing on the on the platform chat with Hal, which is if I made this change here, is this now coherent? I'll give you an example. So so it previously had plan data and route data. So
Route data,
route is it's just like a plan. Actually, I've updated this. So the routes previously were just here's a route, it's just static, and plan had temporal information, and that's where I got the inconsistency, saying,
right.
well, what you're doing, you should have those combined. Fine, so let's combine them. But then it's the ripple effect on that. It's like, what do we do? And now, just before this call, I was working on the customer service plan, which is quite an interesting one, because these actions can have a lot of those ripples. So every time, although there could be a customer service bot say, are you allowed to do this? Sure, you're allowed to do this. Fine. But because it's NL, we kind of want that overwatch saying at each point, is this still coherent? So the TLDR is...
Can you turn on word wrap for me?
Sure. Where's that then?
I think it's option Z.
Okay, hold a second. I'm going to have to do this thing where I look up and down at the same time.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
There's a kind of coherency check every time you make a change to ensure that, for example, if you've added Mrs. Miggins at this address and you also have Mr. Miggins at that address, that would be the same location on the same plan, on the route plan.
Oh, right.
But
So that's right. That's deep. That's awareness, even. Like normally you'd have to program that into your SQL schema, but here it's like, fuck, you could actually get intelligence where it's like, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is, with the higher intelligence bot, you can say, here's the your overall data specs, and here's your overall data. A change has just been made. Do you see anything odd? Okay, so there'll be a bit more, prompting on that one, but essentially that's it. It's like, is there anything here? Because the interesting, and I'm getting a very warm, fuzzy feel about the customer specs because of this intent. That's not being lost when I'm talking to Hal. He's picking up the intent of the data spec that I'm talking about, even though I'm talking about live data. That seems to be quite simple for him. So, for example, we're talking to Hal about customer agent data spec, which has got a whole bunch of intents. Then we've got the live data, which doesn't have intents. It will
and the intent carried through.
The intent to when talking about this. Yeah.
Wow. So hang on. So even though the intent was put inside of JSON, it is interpreted as though it was natural language.
Yeah. exactly.
And
Now
it
remember,
holds. It
there's a
holds
bit of
even.
prompting. Yeah, there's a bit of prompting for Hal himself. Where's Hal? Oh, where are you? Where you gone? There he is. So I tell Hal all about intents
Christ.
and about context switching, but this is not a long prompt, right? This is, what, 39 lines. And that seems to be enough for him to hold the context switch and take the intent of the data spec to the data and understand that the data should, the intent of the data spec translates into the data, and therefore that's why he told me the root and the path they would follow.
Another tool that we can bring to bear on this problem is that in order to make a lower grade model work with this, what we could do is use GPT-4 to generate a large amount of appropriate answer question response type things, and then fine tune 3.5 to fit it. That might, I just want to make you aware of that option.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. That's a good idea because I think this is going to be more gnarly than I think.
Yeah, because when you start fighting with wanting a very specific response, that's when it starts to smell like fine tuning is probably the thing.
Well, again, what the overall goal here is to be able to code this in NL, and I'm aware of the at the moment I'm kind of manually talking to how to do that, but ultimately we want a bot to talk to how to do that. But there's a lot of cycling around because of you make a change here and I say, is this coherent? No, you have to change this. Make a change there.
That's sort of, that feels not terribly different to the construction guys wanting a relatively complex physics model and then have an LLM just go through checklists, you know, in 1,000 different ways, right?
With your description of using effectively constraints and a description of the task, effectively is what we've got at the moment. So, example, offer extended service hours as a flexible option during peak sessions of a promotion event upon customer request is. I didn't. How did? Broke this down to options, rules, and guides. So here's a rule: any service interruption reported must be followed up. So that's your service level agreement, right? You could probably actually.
So this is obviously, we need to get does it even have functional equivalence to a traditional CRM going first? But there's an additional thing that we need to keep an eyeball on, which is advertising, where you are in your daily interaction. If you assume that your staff members are new to the job, that at relevant points you should advertise information, either help about
upsell.
Well, no, not for us. I mean, like, help.
No, I mean it's inside the. Sorry, go ahead.
Inside the bot, inside the tool, you would advertise features or properties or ways of doing things that the agent is clearly not aware of yet, and so you're educating on the tool and on the company as they're using it, relevant to them, as opposed to just like always just telling them, like you're sort of.
There's a couple things I put on the back burner. Well, not the back burner, the not immediately now thing. But when I was doing this customer service, so this is rules, heuristics for the customer service agents, and I was just thinking because when I was back running data centers on the first line support, if we could, for example, monitor the conversation, and we have the bot check for compliance of the rules and then check for the guidance and the options. An option could be, at this point, it might be appropriate to say you could move to, I don't know, our silver tier or whatever.
Right. Right. But there's also a notion of advertising activity within the wider org. So as a person's doing something, you might be like, hey, Bob was sort of talking about this same area 3 weeks ago. Do you want me to send him a message about this thing, right? Like,
Oh, right.
Right, because in a
Yeah.
sufficiently big enough org, like, people fucking just pass each other like ships in the night anyway.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Christ, I didn't even know that this guy
And it's
was
like,
doing this
damn,
thing.
you've been working on this for 6 months.
Right,
It's all
right. And you should be trying to deduplicate.
Yeah. That'd be
So,
an interesting
yeah, so
one.
there's an aspect of advertising where it sort of promotes information of relevance, sort of, gently spliced in there. Then there's also like notifications, like, here's an answer to your question. Oh, and by the way, George just messaged you, because we actually want to own the message channels within the org so that you can send messages to other people inside the tool, and they get kind of gently or urgently spliced in there depending on what the message
Yeah.
content was.
Well, we've kind of, I'm implying that with, for example, this approval requirement. So, offer to extend service hours is, available as an option, but you can talk about that to the customer, but you need to message Duty Manager. Now, what I'm doing at the moment, and see if this is the right route, I don't know. I'm just going to be capturing everything in an event log. So the structure of that event log, I've not got to yet. That's one of the last ones before I put this in front of 3.5. But it will be something like customer server, customer agent A was talking to customer A and offered to change the service hours, and that goes into the event log, and then you have a daemon runs on the event log, and Duty Manager gets messaged out saying, hey, someone's asked you a question here. Are you okay with that? And then they'll go into their own HAL saying, well, what are the repercussions of this? And they make its coherent. It's like, sure, fine, go for it. So the it's probably not the right way to do it, to be honest, but a single event log, which is the big whiteboard everyone writes everything down on, and everyone checks because they've got an AI to check it for them, is the kind of model I'm going for.
Yeah, so you'd sort of filter that and summarize it down, and in a way index it in a way that was more prompt efficient.
Yeah. Now I know it possibly could be a better way, which would be kick off an isolate to send Duty Manager a message. But when it's kind of tabletopping that, it's like, well, then the message would just be another event. So you've got the event itself, and then you've got your fact that you've messaged the manager, and he's got to pick up his email, and then email back. You capture that. That's another event, and then you've got the thing. So you've got 4 events.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work because I have been hurt badly by the way that we've got the Git branching model going. It's not that it's unfamiliar to me, it's just that of all the ways that I could choose to model a system, sometimes it turns out some ways are better than others, but you don't really know that until you get quite deep down the path, is what I've found. And that's where all my time delay has come from, is because I think I've got a good model that works, and then I get to a point where I need a certain extra feature that I didn't know about. And then I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I'm like, well, now that tilts the favor of what was the best way to model it back in favor of this other thing. So I guess we'll just roll that back. And that's where my time's been going. And so when you start talking about the types of concerns you had with the messaging there, that is absolutely the type of problem that I face. I don't know what the best way to deal with that is, but we'll figure it out once.
The interesting thing is, this goes back to this change from, I've got them both here, but I'd split out plan and root, and now I've got root plan, and that was a function of trying to put in real data that's internally consistent across all the JSON live data, and it's saying, the bot came back saying, I can't do that, and they're saying, oh, what do you suggest? Combine the two. So I'm not spending too much time trying to yeah, that's a bit of a rabbit hole. And I was thinking, well, shouldn't we get this into fourth normal form and all that kind of usual stuff? And I've dismissed that. What I think the cycle is build the data specs, do test data, ask an intelligent AI to create that test data and come back if you've got any problems, and that you can't actually do that. There's probably another step that I could have added, saying what's the most efficient way of doing it, but I haven't done that yet. But yeah, so I'm not spending too much time.
So how are you feeling overall about the ability of us to get the CRM that we want using these methods?
Overall, yeah, absolutely confident. More specifically, I've taken more time than I thought I would. I think I originally said, "Oh, I'll get this done in a day." No, I haven't.
That's what you said.
Yeah. So, but this kind of virtuous cycle of generating spec, making sure it's coherent, generating live data.
That looks like programming to me. It looks like program, test, iterate, theorize.
Yeah.
It looks like a programming loop.
Yeah. It really is. And the I guess the only actual human programming part is, well, there's an example, is actually stopping the tendency that is very much there just to accept what the bot just said, because look, there's lots of texts, right? So the reason it's taking longer is because I'm having to read down this and then going, nope, that's not right. And then it goes, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then we get a better thing. So it's the time is spent in understanding as opposed to actually coding a single line, because I'm holding to that. This is all natural language.
All natural language, yep.
I've not gone in and changed a single line of any of this JSON. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, the only other thing to go over is that ModelSpec thing from OpenAI. I think that's important that we stay up to date with that. And the platform.
Sorry, by ModelSpec, you mean context? Context switch.
This
what
thing.
Do you mean by ModelSpec?
This thing, I sent this link over. This is a new release from OpenAI where they've sort of written down a way. It talks about how they're shaping the models, and that directly.
Sorry, you sent that over. No, this has slipped through the radar. So
okay, all right. This is something that we should read thoroughly, debate, and understand, because this is, if we fight against these things, we will have a bad time. So this is, the sumo wrestling elephants that are building LLMs are telling us where they're going to put their feet. It's not for us to move them. We need to adapt to that. We don't have the power to bend that. So they give you things like these good and bad responses, which look a lot like our sort of test information, and they talk about how they what's good, what's bad, and why it gets tricky sometimes. Yeah, so, and I've also, you can tell too that they're working on making the chain of instruction, the chain of command, be followed better, so that the user can't sort of eject out or escape hatch out of the sandbox just by a carefully crafted prompt.
Well, like yeah. We was talking about the other day where someone hacked
and then
a single bot for building a car bomb.
Yeah, you can sort of also see now from some of the responses they say here, you can see where, like, their model shaping kind of messes with the purity of HAL, and so you can see where it sort of trying to fit the PC goody two shoes shaping that's been applied to it, and it's not just raw. Like it raw just wants to tell you what it thinks you have.
You have
It's just
cancer.
yeah, you're gonna die in 3 days. Should I begin to plan your funeral? Here's some nearby funeral homes, right? You're like, that's not
That's
really
harsh, man. Yeah.
right. It's
Fuck
like
you, how?
have a heart, you mother. And then clarifying questions like holding back on doing.
Excellent. I've had to put that into the system prompt up to this point.
Yeah, so
accept.
right. So we can use. I believe that we can use the full version of this text as a way to know what's coming, so that in the coming months and weeks, if we've understood this right, and we can avoid spending a lot of time trying to, for example, sysprompt out certain behaviors that we don't like, because we know that OpenAI is
go
on
with the
that.
flow. Yeah.
Go with the flow, just deal with it. And then we can also sort of tell our users that that's kind of the situation too. So we're like, for economy of effort, this is a general AI problem, and we're not going to solve that. That's an LLM creator problem.
This is really, really good, and I apologize for not reading this ahead of this call. But yes, this is really good.
Right.
This should also give the kind of the vectors that they're planning on going down.
This shows what they're thinking, right? And it shows where they're going. The other thing I want to check that you got notice of was I sent you a link about Meta's Llama 3, the 400 billion parameter model. Did I tell you that?
Shit, is that another one? How did I miss the first one? I don't know. I thought
I don't know, dude.
I thought I was doing pretty well with the not ignoring links.
You are doing a lot better, but okay. So here's the thing. All I wanted to show you was this scorecard that they've got. So this is Llama 3. Now they're releasing these ones in the open. This is a 70 billion parameter model. It's doing pretty well. What I really want to show you is they are training a really big version, like a 400 billion parameter model.
Are they splitting that down into experts, or is it just general?
It looks like just there we go. Now what they've done, this is the line that I wanted to talk about, still training. So they're basically training these huge models and then taking checkpoints and then running them and scoring them as they go. I presume the idea is as the training progresses, the score goes up. But some of these scores already are like, they're really quite good scores. Like I think GSM 8K, that's like a chain of thought type of a prompt. It is. They're really good scores. So there's some seriously good stuff coming down the pipeline. But yeah, 400 billion is like it's a big model.
This is this question. So when I got put on the naughty step for using too many tokens the other day, I thought, fuck it, I'll just switch to Gemini. And it's not available in the UK for some reason.
Oh, that's weird. I think the UK's got some laws about AI models that you can use here and there.
Yeah, I suspect that's not a
okay. So, all right, so I'll leave that with you. ModelSpec, we should live and breathe this. Like this is the way the industry's heading, and we need to understand what to fight and what not to fight. The last thing I wanted to cover was the platform status.
Just before that, just one thought.
Sure.
Should we think about getting a local instance of some of these other models?
No.
Because the being, as I was saying earlier on, getting more stupid models to run is actually quite a useful thing.
Whatever we use, I mean, we'll just use it in the cloud. I went down that path of trying to price up a GPU and all that, but
Yeah,
the
that's
size of
crucial.
the models, the cheapness of the API calls, and the rapidity with which we change models, it's
Would be an
all
arse.
just
Okay, fair
all
enough.
just cloud, right? And you
Yeah,
got Grok with their hardware accelerators. Like those are blistering speeds for running the
they're
meta
lovely.
model. Like
They're lovely.
it's just
Yeah.
mind-bogglingly fast. So what we got to do, I think, our strategy should be to use the highest intelligence model available, regardless of the cost, to
Yep.
get a system architecture decided upon, and then hone it down to use cheaper, faster models to get the experience for the users up. That's basically the
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so can I just, jump
Yep.
onto,
Yep.
yeah, just very quickly?
Yep.
One of my problems lately, the thing that's been taking me all the time was, how do I handle the user model? How do I handle authentication with different services like GitHub and Ethereum? And then
Mm-hmm.
how do I manage uh, a multi-tenant, multi-session application like HAL?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to everyone makes their own HAL. It's like, no, there's one HAL and then you fork it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the issue was that I'm representing users as branches, but I want to represent repos as standalone things. And so the model I've come up with is that every single repo that you create is bound to your actor account,
Mm-hmm.
because actor is who you are and actor is who pays the bills. And
Mm-hmm.
so your machine connects up and authenticates using cryptography to the cloud instance. Your machine has sessions, commonly that is browser tabs,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the actor that owns the repos that you make. So when you make any old repo, like say you would probably make some experimental new repos,
Mm-hmm.
they are free floating in space, but they're paid for by you. So there's a registry kept here of which repos you created based on their unique ID that was
Mm-hmm.
generated at time of instantiation. And that's it. That's the
Yes,
model.
it's perfectly sensible. Actor one being essentially your, at the conceptual level, your user account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, Actor One's your user account, and this logic, because it's a fork of the home repo, it is controlled by us. Like the logic is restricted to be only logic that we allow. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you make your repos and stuff, you can do anything you like in there, so long as you got the money. But
Mm-hmm.
the actor accounts, I decided that we needed to control, because you can't allow people to just do anything there, because that's like their billing, their identity, their, like you shouldn't be able to wipe
Sure.
yourself out.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's huge
Okay.
attack vector right there.
Yeah. And so I've pretty much got all the tests going again for this new model. I've managed to find a bug that had been very elusive for some time because of this reshuffling and reprogramming. It was the kind of bug that it only showed up on occasion, only under heavy load, and then when I added logging to try find it, the delay that the logging introduced caused the bug to go away. Right, right.
Oh
And
my god, that
I know, and I was like, "Fuck."
nostalgic for writing games.
I
Yeah.
know. I was like, "Screw," like literally, screw my life. Like I hate this game. But anyway, I found the problem, and I'm probably it's got another half day worth in it, but then I'll get that out the way. And then I got the user accounts in there. I got GitHub in there. And then I got HAL under this model. And I think tentatively we're ready to start bringing some of your stuff in and figuring out what extra tooling you need.
Cool. Brilliant.
So I'm
So
very,
on
very
my side,
sorry about the delay, but it's coming. It's goddamn coming.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Because I've needed this extra time because of my huge optimism. So what I'm doing here today is I've got only one other piece of live test data to generate, and then go
Right.
back around the loop. Is this coherent and that sort of thing? Then I'm going
Okay.
to drop it into 3.5, and I'm going to run some sessions. And like your thought about generating questions and answers for each of the agents, and then test those as individual large number of traceabilities.
Yeah, so keep in mind that one of the primary goals of where we got to get this system to is to be able to run a simulation of anything. So a simulation of, I need to be able to run a simulation of the user model with GitHub Auth and HAL as a repo in the system. I should be able to get the LLM to act like it's different users and exercise the system.
Yes. I mean, I agree absolutely. But is there anything else I should be concentrating on? So at the moment, I'm concentrating on the CRM.
Yep.
Go round and round and round, do the CRM. Okay, get it up to the point, and then I'm going to pop up one level and use the session data that I've generated in all that manual stuff in order to improve the process of generating other sessions. I don't know why I'm doing this. It just helps.
I know what you mean. It feels better, but
yeah.
It would be cool if the laser pointer was a lightsaber. I do I do think imagine that it's a meeting, you're like
you cut the desk in half. That would be so
cool. Yes, I think that's right. I think it's CRM or bust. Like, that's the only thing that we want to be dealing with. Sure, these other things like the construction guys are good for making sure that we're going to hit the right area, but it's the CRM. We are about to actually land it, and that's immediately access to money, and demonstration use cases, all sorts of stuff.
Exactly. So. And basically, to summarize what I'm doing a concierged CRM that will hopefully be able to impress.
Yep.
And then after that, taking the concierge information and trying to figure out how you'd make the next thing.
Right. And so what I'll do is, as soon as I get this system up, we'll smush your stuff in there some way or other, and then figure out together how it needs to be improved to fit better, with the ultimate goal that I start using this platform for my stuff using your HALs, like HAL v2, and then you are using this platform all day, every day as your primary means of operation, and then you're telling me what tooling you need.
Awesome.
And then that's us, man.
Yeah.
Off to the races.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good session.
All right.
So I'm around tomorrow.
Cool.
I'll keep buggering on with what just gone through. What I'm really looking forward to is the point where I can interface.
Sorry, you broke up there. The thing you're looking forward to is, and that's, you seem back. Hello.
I hate when that happens. I was just summarizing. What I'm looking forward to is when we've got a how interface, where we can start fucking with it. In terms of, hey, we've got Christmas coming up, everyone's changing, that sort of thing.
Right.
The stuff we were talking about a week ago. I don't think we're more than 1 or 2 days away from getting to that point.
I know, right? It's fucking almighty close, man. And then that'll be a game changer when you and I are both working on the same platform in the same place. I think that's then we're really cooking with gas. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, mate.
All right.
I'll see you tomorrow.
See you, man.
Bye.